This is the CLT, a safe place for you and me. Possibly the best show in the Queen City that's not on TV. Hey everyone, welcome into the CLT. I'm Tiffany Blackmon, your host, and I am joined today by Charlie Davies. You're an MLS analyst, a Revolution analyst, former national team member. You've done it all, Charlie. Just thank you for being on with us today.
No, thanks for having me. I'm excited about this.
This should be fun. So I've already talked to some of your good friends. I had Heath Pierce on last week, and he told me to make fun of you.
Of course.
He gave me some ammo, maybe about your fashion choices, your jeans.
Yeah. Yeah, I usually get stick from Heath about how tight my pants are. Usually he equates them to being basically long johns or just tights, just Peter Pan tights, but they're comfortable. They do the job.
They do the job. So you don't take any fashion tips from Heath then, I take it.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
I'll make sure to tell him that.
Please do.
Well, you're up in Cape Cod, you told me?
Yes, I'm in Cape Cod. So we moved here mid-May, and we'll be here till September. So the main reason for coming down here is, I have twin boys who are 4 years old, and they can go to the beach, and there's there's nobody there to interfere with them, so they can have the beach to themselves. And they love to be in the backyard and play. And we bought a blow up pool as well, so they can enjoy themselves here. So it's literally for us the perfect place to be, hunkered down during these crazy times.
Are you playing soccer with them?
That is without a doubt my favorite thing to do with them, and they love it. And so right now I'm allowing them to beat me. And so I told them, when you're older, it's going to be a little bit tougher to beat Dada.
So you're wearing the coaching hat, and
Yes.
Then you're wearing an analyst hat. You've been a player. What's your favorite hat to wear?
I've been very fortunate to have a long, enjoyable career. And I feel like all the things that have happened to me throughout my life have happened for a reason, to put me in the position I am now. And what I enjoy most is giving back to the youth, sharing my experiences and hopefully motivating or inspiring the kids out there to let them know they're not alone, that everyone goes through difficult times. And it's all about mindset. Really, it comes down to just being positive, knowing that you can get through it. And tough times don't last. And through all those bits of adversity, you just become that much stronger to handle the next one. And so that's what I really enjoy most is sharing my experiences and my stories with kids, with the youth, and then hoping to reach one of them, touch one of them, and inspire them to know that they can do great things.
As you just alluded to, you've overcome a lot in your career, and certainly that adds to your journey in soccer. Where did it all begin for you? Where did you find your love of the game?
Love of the game began in 1994 when I attended my first ever match, which was a World Cup match, South Korea versus Bolivia at the old Foxborough Stadium. Had never heard of those countries. But when I went to the match, I was just inspired by the fans all coming together from all different walks of life, and the face paint and the wave, and there was just this excitement and this energy that surrounded the match. And I was like, this is for me. This is the sport I want to be a part of.
That's what we're hoping to actually grasp here when our team is playing, when Charlotte MLS takes to the field, just this fantastic atmosphere. Have you ever been to Charlotte before?
I have, and I'll add this, because North Carolina in general has always been, in my mind, a soccer hotbed. And you look at the universities in North Carolina, whether it's University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Duke, Wake Forest, all of these programs have developed top players, and they're always competing for championships. And then the youth soccer as well. They've always had top players coming out of North Carolina. I don't think it's going to be an issue or a problem to get people to come to the stadium. And I think it's well deserved that they are having an MLS franchise, and I look forward to seeing them be a part of soccer as it grows in this country, because North Carolina is going to be a staple. There's no doubt about it, because of the hotbed of youth soccer in the state.
And certainly being a new team, you want to make your mark and help the MLS continue to grow. How does an expansion team come in and kind of kick the door down?
It really starts with leadership. Having people who have done it, experience, that's what matters, because you got to build the right team. And you look at Atlanta, and what Atlanta has been able to do in LAFC. These are newer franchises that have come in and hit the ground running. And it's about building the right coaching staff, because they're able to pick the right players, sign the right players, and put out a product that everyone can be excited about and entertained. So it's not necessarily about signing the biggest name out there. It's about signing what's right for your market, what's right for your fan base, and what's right for the team. And so typically right now we're seeing a lot of younger, not so well-known players from outside the country being brought in to develop here and refine themselves, and then be sold for a larger amount. And you're starting a business as well, because Major League Soccer is one of those newer leagues in the world, in the grand scheme of things, that are trying to find their footing. And they've done a fantastic job of growing the league. And now they understand, okay, this is a business. This is where we can make the most, is where we can bring those young, talented players who haven't really made a name for themselves yet, or on the brink of it, and then we'll flip them for a lot more. At the same time, we're going to develop our own youth so that they can be at that level where we can sell to Europe and the rest of the world, and recoup to just continue to do it year in and year out.
Speaking of young players in Europe, you were a guy that started your career off overseas.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult was that decision to start in Europe, and what did you take away from that experience?
You know, it was always my dream to play in Europe ever since I was a little kid, and Arsenal was always my team. So Thierry Henry was one of my childhood idols, and you know, I just had always I was always fascinated with playing overseas in Europe, and learning different cultures, and learning different languages, and eating different foods. So when it came down to leaving Boston College, I had option A, which was go on trial to Ajax in Amsterdam, which is, you know, typically one of the most illustrious academies in the world, or take a guaranteed Adidas Generation Adidas contract from MLS, which was very tempting. But at the end of the day, I wanted to follow my dream, and I believed in myself enough to go to Ajax and trial. It didn't work out, but what came from it, I guess, was a contract offer from my first club, which was Hammarby in Stockholm, Sweden. So you know, it's one of those things where I look back and I would make that decision 1,000 times out of 1,000 times at that moment. Now, fast forward 15 years, and I might have a hard time leaving for Europe, because the growth of MLS and the competition, the facilities, the attention around the league is that much more appealing now than it was back then. So there's, I think, a bigger advantage starting here, knowing that you're going to get playing time and develop, just to eventually go to Europe if that's what you want to do.
And the MLS is back, so I know you've been talking about that. What's your take on all this, and having, you know, soccer again being played?
Yes. My initial reaction was yes. I've been waiting so long for the league to kick off again. So a World Cup style tournament is exactly what I would love to see, and I'm so excited to see players come together, having to dig deep because there won't be fans, but knowing that they're not only playing to represent their club, their market, their city, but just, I think, all of humanity, you know, to be able to walk away and take a second to not think about what's going around us, and focus on the love of the game, which is like, it unites everybody, and we can watch live competition, and that's what I'm really excited about. So I do feel that there'll be some teams with bigger advantages, considering they're used to the climate, because Orlando in the summer is no joke. It is no joke. So there'll definitely be some adjustments, and style of play will have to probably change at times. Won't be as aggressive, and you won't see as many teams high pressing for long periods of time. But it should be an interesting competition, and one that is going to be fun to watch.
See, Florida, Carolina, it gets hot here. It's a roasting here. So
I did DC for 1 year, and oof. I mean, I couldn't even be outside past noon. Like we finished training, we'd have 8 a.m. trainings.
You gotta toughen up.
Home by noon, I was like, I'm good I'll wait till the sun goes down.
See, that just means our team's gonna be like ultra fit.
Yeah, you got to play those day games. Day games.
What was your toughest competition, or who did you view as your toughest competition as a player?
As a team or as an individual?
We'll go individual. Who did you
okay.
tough opponent to take on?
As an individual, probably my toughest opponent would be was the Brazil national team in the FIFA Confederations Cup in 2009 in the final. They had Luizão and Lucio were the two center backs, with Mike Cohn as a right fullback, who was arguably one of the best right fullbacks in his prime, and Dani Alves came in as the left back. That back line was so intimidating. They were all 6'2" and tall. I think Luizão is like 6'7". So it was just one of those times where you're playing against the world's best. It's Brazil. And, they're very physical, but they're smart. They understand the game. And it was an interesting dynamic for an American team where we had so much confidence going into that final. We were up 2-0 at half, but then Brazil, they got that early goal in the second half, and just it was full steam ahead for them, and they came back to beat us 3-2. But I realized at that moment that as Americans, as a national team, we can compete for a World Cup. When on our best day, we have the quality to do that. So it was also an eye-opening tournament for me in particular, and also one that I felt like, man, I know I can be at this level, play at this level, and play well.
Will the national team be able to compete for a World Cup again, especially when you look at the guys that are coming up the ranks, Christian Pulisic and Gio Reyna? What's your assessment of those guys and how they can maybe make an impact?
I am pumped for the future. For the future, this national team is they're going to have a lot of players playing in Europe, playing at the highest levels, and being successful in MLS as well. So you have both players who are doing it in MLS and players who are doing it in Europe at a young age. What separates, potential to actual results, I think, is experience. And so for a lot of these guys right now, it's grinding through those tough matches, grinding through those uncomfortable situations and circumstances, so that when it comes to World Cup qualifying and you're playing away, at Azteca Stadium in Mexico, or in Trinidad and Tobago, or in Honduras, you've been through it before. That it's not going to be surprising. It's nothing new, and that how to get results there. So winning in different ways to get yourself to the end goal, which is qualifying for a World Cup. And then on top of that, when you do get to the World Cup, you're ready to go. Like you've already put in all the hard work. You have the talent. You're playing Champions League. You're playing at the highest level. Now it's time to come together as a country. And that's another thing, is playing youth tournaments together, international tournaments. That young core group will have known each other for so long. And that's what you saw with the golden years with Spain. They grew up together as a generation. And so those bonds were there, and it showed on the field. They all knew each other. They understood each other's tendencies, and they were not only playing for the country, they're playing with each other, and they enjoyed it. And you could see that. So I'm optimistic that in the future, come 2026, when the World Cup's here, we will have a team that can compete for the championship.
I like optimism. So
you have to. Well, why be negative? Why not be optimistic? Why not be positive? Because it does no one any good if you're negative.
We will stay positive here, because that's what we do.
Let's do it.
CLTea. You're speaking from experience because you have a wealth of it. Can you tell me what was the best moment for you, either in playing on the national team and just throughout your career? Is there a moment that stands out for you that you just remember so fondly?
I have a couple. So, if I take you back to 1997, which was my first ever U.S. national team game that I attended, and it was U.S. versus Mexico at the old Foxborough Stadium. The match ended 2-2, but I knew at that moment that's the ultimate goal. I mean, you playing in the World Cup for your country, that's like the cherry on top. But for me, the ultimate goal is playing in a match, U.S. versus Mexico, the biggest rivalry, and seeing what it meant to both countries and fan bases. I said, I need to be a part of that. So 2009, I got to go to Azteca Stadium and represent the U.S. to play against Mexico in their most historic stadium, one of the most historic stadiums in the world. And so when that moment became reality and scoring in that match to in the ninth minute, it was like I had an outer body experience. It's the pinnacle of my career. And then I tragically went through a very difficult time when I was involved in a car accident in 2009, and you have the World Cup taken away from you, and you got to build yourself back up, and there's all this uncertainty. And I wasn't sure what kind of player I would be, if I would be able to make it as far as I had before, and would I be as fast and as dangerous. And then in my first game back with DC United on my lone year, I scored 2 goals coming off the bench. And so I was crying, I was emotional after the game. And it was one of those moments where I was so grateful that I could play the sport again, but also grateful that even if I wasn't as good as I was before, I wasn't going to be as fast or as dangerous or dynamic as I once was, I still could be successful. And I think that's what really hit home for me was just keep working hard and stay positive. Try and chase your old self. And that's what I played. I played this catch-up game of just trying to make it as far as I could and push myself as hard as I could to try and reclaim my previous form before the accident. And that's what kept me going. And at the same time, I was just so grateful to get on the field. And I was going to push myself, but I was so happy. I made sure I took time, when I was putting on my shoes every day to go, man, I get to do this for a living. Like all this is extra credit. This is all extra credit because I survived a car accident. I survived, I'm alive and I have my life, but now I can really enjoy coming out to train, to play, to be with the guys in the locker room, to have conversations with the fans. I literally enjoyed all of it. And so when I decided to retire, I was at complete peace because I knew I gave it everything I had. I didn't take a moment for granted, and I could rest easy and not struggle to think, man, if I could still play, because I am relatively still young. I'm only 34. I feel pretty young. I don't feel like a spring chicken, but I'm telling you, I could still get on the field and do some things. But when I left the game, I was thankful for the opportunity, and there was no regrets.
That's what everyone talks about when I've asked about you, is just your energy, and you've got such a good energy about you. And I know people just feed off of that. You talked about being able to overcome all these adversities. And I remember the moment when you did come back. What was it like to have the support of your teammates? How did that make you feel?
Oh, every time I talk about my teammates, I get goosebumps because I've had so many great teammates that have become family. That most of them I consider my brothers. So when they're there to support you in your deepest, darkest moments, the toughest moments of your life, and they're building you up and they're with you every step of the way. And, whether it was with the national team, whether it was with DC United, whether it was with the New England Revolution, whether it was with the Philadelphia Union, whether it was the fans from the country. I had, the fans from the Seattle Sounders and Salt Lake, they were raising number 9s, in the 9th minute across the country. And I had never played for those teams. So it's one of those things where I feel attached to America, just the country in general. All soccer fans in this country were there for me. And literally their letters, their tweets, their, posts gave me inspiration. They inspired me to keep going, to not give up. And that I had so many people there that cared about me. And, that's special. That's something that I'll never take for granted. I'm very, very fortunate that I had so many great people behind me to give me that support when I needed it. And so the teammates, especially after that first goal, wanted me to do the stanky leg and pretending to, I think Dax was like the fake DJ, Dax McCarty. So, it's one of those moments that, I'll tell my kids, I'll tell my grandkids, hopefully one day. So I'm very, I'm just thankful. I'm just thankful when it comes down to it.
You mentioned some of the laughs, like they're there to pick you up when times are tough. Teammates are, but they're also there to kind of, everyone knows you got to have fun with your teammates, right? So
Absolutely.
over the years, then who's been the funniest teammate that you've had?
Oh, the funniest teammate. I'm usually the guy. I'm usually I'm usually the funny guy. I feel like I can get anybody to laugh at some point, but
Jokes, or is it just kind of impromptu? Are you just naturally funny like I am?
Yeah, exactly like you. No, it's a little bit of both. I'm flexible, so I dibble dabble in everything. Whether it's sharp, comments right away, reaction comments. Whether it's dancing, usually dancing is what gets people to laugh.
So now that you're a dad, though, or you've been a dad for a little bit, have you fallen into the dad joke realm? Do you do that?
Not yet. Not yet. I mean, there are some dad jokes out there, but I'm trying to be the coolest dad known to man. Like I want my boys to be like, man, that's my dad right there. He's so cool. I don't want my boys to be like, oh, dad, no, not again. Please don't say that joke again, please.
You said you had no regrets about retirement. And I know it can be a struggle for some guys to leave the game, which you're still in it very much so.
Mm-hmm.
What has it been like now on the other side?
Lovely. Sometimes I think, why didn't I retire a little bit sooner? Maybe a year sooner, because it honestly has been great, and getting to know everything that happens behind the scenes, especially now being on camera, knowing what goes into production, what goes into, creating these stories. And it's been fantastic to work with Major League Soccer. They've really helped me grow as a soccer analyst, and as well as just being comfortable in front of camera, right? It's all about reps. And I think I've been fortunate to make some great connections throughout my career. Shaw Brown is one of the main forces behind me getting behind the camera. He always thought I have the personality, I have the charisma to talk about the game and educate people on how the game should be played. And he's been so influential in my growth. I always tell Shaw, who was with Fox Sports, he's been with everyone, ESPN, Fox, NBC Sports, but Shaw, he's direct with his critique. And I always say, he gives me two-footed challenge. I said, the harder the better, because that's how you grow. And I love getting the feedback. Usually the negative ones are what allow you to grow, because you got to work on, and you got to be able to accept the negative, or it's not negative, but it's just harsh critiques, I would say. And he's not afraid to be like, hey, Charlie, you got to do this better. You got to do that better. And you grow from it. You learn. And I think I'll always be grateful for Shaw and what he's been able to do for me in my short career thus far. And then Stu Holden, one of my best friends, has been there for me and giving me tips and encouragement and things I should do, shouldn't do, people I should sign with, should and shouldn't sign with. And then New England Revolution, obviously being a former player, being a New Englander, just being always there with the fans, and now being the lead broadcaster with Brad Feldman, just being able to continue to educate and grow the game. My goal is to have people in New England being like, man, the Revolution, did you see that game last night? Well, the Patriots are playing. Yeah, forget about the Patriots. Oh, but the Celtics? No, the Revolution. We need to talk about the Revolution. That's what I want. So everyone can watch a New England Revolution game in the New England area and say, that's the top team right now. That's who we should be talking about. So that's the goal.
And you can do that too, because you also host a podcast.
Right? Yes.
When's the next episode dropping?
The U.S. Soccer Podcast next episode will be dropping tomorrow.
This is perfect.
And it's with Robbie Rogers. So one of my closest friends that I've been able to fortunate enough to have in the game of soccer. We've known each other since I think I was 18 or 17, youth national team days, and just to see him grow, and I'm so proud of him for what he's done as a player, as a person, and now in his post career as a film producer. So he's an impressive man. He's an impressive father. So don't miss out on that conversation tomorrow when the U.S. Soccer Podcast drops.
Thank you so much, Charlie.
Thank you so much.